I'm excited about this. You guys didn't know you were going to get a nursery book this morning. All right. Once there was a tree, and she loved the little boy. And every day the boy would come and he would gather her leaves, and he would make them into crowns and play king of the forest. He would climb up her trunk and swing from her branches and eat apples, and they would play hide and seek. And when he was tired, he would lay in her shade. And the boy loved the tree very much, and the tree was happy. But time went by, and the boy grew older, and the tree was often alone. Then one day the boy came, and the tree said, "Come, boy, come, climb up my trunk and swing me like that." I got into it. Come, boy, climb up my trunk and swing from my branches and eat apples and play in my shade and be happy." "I'm too big to climb and play," said the boy. "I want to buy things and have fun. I want some money. Can you give me some money?" "I'm sorry," said the tree, "but I don't have any money. I only have leaves and apples. Take my apples, boy, and sell them in the city. Then you will have money and you'll be happy." And so the boy climbed up the tree and gathered her apples and carried them away, and the tree was happy. But the boy stayed away for a long time, and the tree was sad. And then one day the boy came back, and the tree shook with joy, and she said, "Come, boy, come, climb up my trunk and swing from my branches and eat apples and play in my shade and be happy." "I'm too busy to climb a tree," said the boy. "I want a house to keep me warm," he said. "I want a wife and I want children, and so I need a house. Can you give me a house?" "I have no house," said the tree. "The forest is my house, but you may cut off my branches and build a house. Then you will be happy." And so the boy cut off her branches and carried them away to build a house. And the tree was happy. But the boy stayed away for a very long time. And when he came back, the tree was so happy she could hardly speak. "Come, boy," she whispered. "Come and play." "I'm too old and sad to play," said the boy. "I want a boat that will take me away from here. Can you give me a boat?" "Cut down my trunk," said the tree, "and you can have your boat and sail away, and then you will be happy." So the boy cut down her trunk and made a boat and sailed away, and the tree was happy, but not really. After a long time, the boy came back again. "I'm sorry, boy," said the tree, "but I have nothing left to give you. My apples are gone." "My teeth are too weak for apples," said the boy. "My branches are gone," said the tree. "You cannot swing on them." "I'm too old to swing from branches," said the boy. "My trunk is gone," said the tree. "You cannot climb." "I'm too tired to climb," said the boy. "I'm sorry," sighed the tree. "I wish I could give you something, but I have nothing left. I'm just an old stump. I'm sorry." I don't need very much now," said the boy. "Just a quiet place to sit and rest." "I'm very tired." "Well," said the tree, straightening herself up as much as she could, "well, an old stump is a good place for sitting and resting. Come, boy, sit down, sit and rest." And the boy did, and the tree was happy. The end. Oh, you hear that story, and does it make you mad? You get mad, you feel sad, or you're happy at the end? I read the story of the giving tree, and I really like it. It reminds me, do we treat God this way? Get real quiet. Do we treat God this way? Do we only come to God when we need something, and then we just go away and do our own thing, and all times get rough, and then we come back to God and we say, "God, I need something else," and God's like, "I'll take care of it." And then we just go and stay away for a very long time. I read the story and it stirs up emotions. We get the question, what do you want from God? Do we even want God? I have to ask myself that question. Do we even want God? And if we do want God, what do we really want from Him? This next question up here, what does God want from you? That's really the question. Because if you really want God, then that's the question that you would want to ask. What does God want from you? I have a prayer staff here. There's another story behind this, but when I was at Lincoln, I loved to pray out in the field by myself. And so I would have my headphones on, I'd go out in the field like Mufasa. And I would have my headphones on and I'd pray in the field, and it was just so peaceful and quiet, like the wind would blow and like the feathers would blow, and it was just so awesome. And one night I was out there listening to a song, and in between the song, I heard this kid yelling at the top of his lungs, like, "What do you want from me? You brought me here." and you said everything was going to be okay. And so I turned my CD off, and I'm listening to this kid just like, I'm like, it's about to get real. Somebody's going to fight. And then I realized he's talking to God. Like, he's about 50 yards away from me, and he doesn't see me. And he's just pacing back and forth, yelling, what do you want from me? You said I would come here and everything would be fine, and blah, blah, blah. He's just yelling, and it's like, what do you want from me? And for me, like with my prayer time being so peaceful and me getting teary-eyed and stuff like that, and then just hearing this kid yell at the top of his lungs, he didn't care who heard him or what was going on. He wanted to know, what did God want from him? Why was he there? And so being a Christian, does that make a difference in your life? Does that make your life better? Does being a Christian make your life worse? Do you guys think about that? Why are we here? I call myself a Christian, and what does that really mean? Does that make a difference for me? We find the answer to this question in Micah. What does God want from you? And in Micah chapter 6, verse 6 through 8, it says, with what shall I come before the Lord and bow down before the exalted God? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with 1,000 rams, with 10,000 rivers of olive oil? Shall I offer my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? He has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. And so in this list we see 3 things that God wants from us. To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. And the first one, act justly. We're going to go through these 3. To act justly is to act with fairness, to act with honesty and integrity. And then this is what we should all have as Christians. Would you say that this world is a just place? Would you say, if you looked at the world around you, would you say you see a lot of justice? We don't. And it's frustrating because this world says, step on people to get what you want. Stab people in the back. If it's good for you, it's good for you. That's kind of what this world tells us. It doesn't really, for the most part, teach us integrity and honesty. But in Psalm 51, it says, you desired faithfulness, even in the womb. You taught me wisdom in that secret place. And then farther down it says, create in me a pure heart, O God. And so the world teaches us a certain way, but God tells us that we had this when we were born. We were born with faithfulness and wisdom and this stuff that God pours into us to create in us a pure heart. This world teaches us a certain way, and God tells us that we were already born with this integrity and this honesty, this natural inclination to treat people fair. That's how we were born. And so that this world teaches us aggression, to be your best, to consume, and that's not true. God tells us from our birth that we have faithfulness and wisdom. Can anyone tell me who this is? Yeah, Charles Darwin. He's known for the evolution stuff and all that. A lot of what he wrote and what he said and what he thought was taken and perpetuated and blown out of proportion. And a lot of the small ideas he had were taken and made big ideas by a small group of people. He wrote a book called The Descent of Man. And in this book, he uses a phrase we all probably know, survival of the fittest. In this book, he uses survival of the fittest twice. He uses the word love 95 times. But survival of the fittest is what was taken out of this book and blown out of proportion. He noticed that when humans are born, they have this need for connection. They have this need to find someone and to bond with them. And again, to treat them fair, to have that honesty and integrity. When a baby is born, their eyes are searching, they're looking around. And we found out recently that when a baby is doing that, they're looking for another pair of eyes to make connection with. They're looking for familiarity and someone to let them know everything's okay. Like there's someone like me and we can connect. And that's an amazing thing that God put in us from our birth. And so we have all this positive stuff in us, and the world tells us that it's the opposite of that. And in Proverbs God pours all this stuff into us, all this, the goodness and the integrity and the just, to be just. And the way that we keep that in our hearts is to guard it. In Proverbs 4:23 it says, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. We have all this good stuff in our heart. And again, science, I'm not knocking on science, but science is catching up to religion. And they're starting to realize that the heart sends way more signals to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. And we kind of feel that, we kind of know that. In the Bible it says, guard your heart, because everything flows from it. But science is starting to realize that in between heartbeats, those little zigzags in between heartbeats are actually emotions that are sending signals to the brain about what's going on. And so that's pretty cool stuff. How does your heart feel when you see injustice? When you see something unfair? Angry, right? My wife still hates Michael Vick because of what he did. Like, come on, man, he paid his time. And we're going to talk about, see, this is acting justly, we're going to talk about loving mercy. But she still has a thing about Michael Vick because of he was involved with dog fighting and stuff like that. And so he went to jail and all that. But it's hard to get over that stuff. We see that and we're like, how can that happen? We hear about sex slavery and all that stuff, and it's like people born into these situations and children being abused, and it's just, we see it all around us, and it touches our hearts. Like when we hear Sarah McLachlan with the dog commercial, it's like, I want to change the channel, man, because it starts getting at you. Like that stuff, it touches your heart. And that's built in for a reason. God had that compassion and that justice in us for a reason, because that's how we're supposed to treat each other. And so we're supposed to guard our hearts. So how do we treat people? You guys think about that one. And again, one way you can tell is your heart heavy or is it light? That's one way. Is your heart heavy right now? Is there something you're holding on to? Is there something, or is your heart light? Is there anything like that? And so acting justly. And then the next one is love mercy. There it is. Sweet. To love, thank you. To love mercy. And this term, love mercy, is the same term that I used last week. See, you guys missed like the best sermon of the year. Luckily, you're here for the second best of the year so far. I've only been two. Love mercy. We talked about God wants to offer this steadfast love to us. And the word mercy here is the same as steadfast love. It's the same as grace, as an unexpected kindness, giving someone something that they didn't earn, but it's a gift. And not just to have mercy, but to love mercy. That's two different things. It's easy to have mercy. So like, most of the time, why do we do things for people? Because we're going to get something in return. We're going to get a reward most of the time. That's why we do things. But to love mercy is to do something without expecting a reward, without expecting someone to give you something in return. And again, is that how we treat God? Do we say, God, things are rough right now, so I'm going to come to church. I'll go to church, and you'll make everything better in my life. Do we say, you know what, God, money's tight right now, but I'm going to tithe so that you can give me more money. Because things are tight. Do we say, okay, God, I'll treat this person the way you want me to treat them because I'm going to expect you to bless me. And I know I sit up here and I say all this stuff, and like I'm asking myself the same questions. And we have to look at that. We have to look at, do we love God because of His things, or do we love God because He's our God? It's something we're looking at, loving mercy. And again, loving mercy is built into us. To extend compassion to people, that's built into us. To be there for each other, that's built into us. We see all these examples in the New Testament. We see the Good Samaritan, an example of a Samaritan helping a Jew, and you wouldn't expect that. You see the prodigal son, the son who abused his dad's inheritance and went and did his own thing and came back, and his father extended grace and love to him. And you see it with the woman caught in adultery. Jesus could have just let her been stoned to death, but he stepped in and he extended grace. He took this as an opportunity to extend mercy, to love mercy, to show it to us. And then the last one, the thief on the cross. Jesus didn't have to say, you'll be with me today in paradise. He could have said, okay, thanks for believing on the Son of God. But he extended grace to that thief on the cross. And he didn't have to do that. I have a short video that I'm going to show from YouTube. And again, like if you don't believe this stuff is built in, this is just something that, like the clarity of this video isn't the best, but I'm proving a point that we are all we have built-in compassion and love. So, watch this.
What you're about to see now was a surprise for a little boy whose dad has been in Iraq. The scene is a small town in northwest Washington State. U.S. Navy Ensign Bill Hawes, who spent the past 7 months deployed to Iraq, decided to surprise his 6-year-old son, John. John didn't know until he laid eyes on his dad.
It's doing something. There we go.
It took young John a long time to stop crying, but when he did, he mustered the courage to introduce his dad to his classmates who had all written him letters while he was deployed. It's tough to take.
Okay, thanks. Well, that was the video. This kid sitting in class. You hear the tears, and again, like the videos I'm talking about, we see videos and we want to change the channel. This kid's sitting in class, and you see this stuff on YouTube. And his dad comes in from Iraq, and he just starts bawling and running up to his dad and giving him a hug, and like you get, oh my goodness, you watch that and you get teary-eyed. It's because it's built in. It's built into us to extend grace and extend compassion. And everyone here has a movie they can think of or a song that when they hear it, it just stirs something in their heart. And that's because it's built in. We were made to show steadfast love to each other, and that's what God desires from us. In Matthew chapter 5, it says, "Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Love your enemies and pray for them." That's not easy. In 1 Peter, it says, "Finally, all of you, be like-minded, be sympathetic, love one another, be compassionate and humble. Do not repay evil with evil or insult with insult. On the contrary, repay evil with blessing, because this is what you are called to inherit your eternal blessing." So don't repay evil with evil, but repay evil with blessing. Is that easy to do? Somebody who's your enemy, is it easy to pray for them? No, it's not easy. When somebody does something bad to you, what's your first response? Is it revenge, forgiveness, grace?
Being mad.
Being mad. Is it confusion, sadness? For a long time, my first reaction was revenge. And it was revenge because I was good at it. It's hard to not do something bad when you're good at it. Revenge was one of those things for me. And because to get good revenge, the main thing you need is patience. With patience comes good revenge. I'm not giving suggestions out there, but God has worked on my heart with that. And so, for example, my mom, she had a boyfriend. I did not like him. First of all, he wasn't my dad. Second of all, he did drugs, and he just wasn't a good guy. His name was Cedric. And so I was in 6th grade, 7th grade. They were doing drugs or whatever, and he was having trouble breathing. And so they called the ambulance. Ambulance came in the room, strapped him on the bed. As they were going out, under my breath, I said, "God, don't let him come back." That was crazy. I don't remember saying it loud enough for anyone else to hear, but I said it out loud under my breath. I said, "God, don't let him come back." And on the way to the hospital, his lungs filled up with fluid and he died. And it was crazy. Like, at that moment, things like extending grace, extending mercy, and loving it started to work on me. And it still took a while, but at that moment, I realized, like, you don't mess around with God when it comes to extending love or mercy. Like, you don't hold on to things. You just don't know what's going to happen. So many, and I say that because people in here are holding grudges and stuff like that. You're looking for revenge. We all expect God to smite somebody for us, but when it happens, you feel bad. So we're called to extend mercy. We're called to extend love. Not only that, do we look for opportunities? Do we love mercy so much that we look for opportunities to extend it? And I know it's hard. We see somebody on the side of the road with a flat tire or something, and it's hard to pull over sometimes and want to just be there for them. And our world is a broken place. Justice, mercy, love, and grace are all being taken away from people all the time. It's easy to love God when He's good to us. It's easy to love the beautiful things He created. Oh God, I love this awesome sunset, and God, I love hearing the birds in the morning and all this stuff. And that's true, but God calls us to love what the world views as ugly, what the world views as unworthy, what the world views as hopeless. God calls us to see those things as beautiful and to love those things and extend mercy to them. And we can go on that forever. As Christians, we nitpick sins. We like to put a value on sins and put one higher than the other and say, this sin's an abomination, this sin's not, whatever. But if God didn't extend grace to our abomination, we wouldn't be here. So we have to extend grace to everyone. And what are we doing to make this world a better place? And I was watching this video, and this guy talked about his church. He said, we have blacks, we have Hispanics, we have Asians and whites, they all come together on Sunday morning, they all love each other, and they all have a good time at church, but then when they go out, they don't see that anymore. Like, I'm white, you're black, we're not going to interact, blah, blah, blah. But when they come to church, everybody's together. And a lot of times we see that separation in the church. So what are we doing to make it better as Christians? If we call ourselves Christians, we want to make people's lives better. And lastly, to walk humbly with your God. So did you notice the first two things don't really have to do with God? The first two things that God wants from us have to do with each other. And that's just an awesome God that we serve. For the first two things that He wants from us, to act justly to each other and to extend mercy and love mercy for each other, I think that's cool. And the last one, to walk humbly with God. Our walk with God is a continual walk of maturity. And as we grow, we become wise. The fruit of the Spirit grows in us: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. That all grows in us as we become more mature and more wise about God. The world says the opposite of that. The world says greed, self, money, power, control, pride. In native tribes and aboriginal tribes, if you have something beyond your needs, if you're hoarding something and storing it so you have it later, or you can have control over people, if you're taking more than you need, they consider that a mental illness. And we look at our country, or we look at the world, and look at America, and we see we have way more than we need. And it's hard because everything about TV, like advertisements, consumerism, says just take as much as you can get. But in a native tribe, they would consider that a mental illness. So, and again, Romans 12, it's a mind change. We have to renew our minds and not be deceived by what the Lord says that we're supposed to have. We're supposed to walk humbly with God and to be still. So how is our walk with God? I like to ask a lot of questions. How is your walk with God? Because humbleness is the first step. Being still and knowing that God is the first step. And Ephesians 2:8-9 says, we aren't saved by our works so that we can boast. Did you guys ever think about that? We're not saved by works so that we can boast. We're saved by grace. When we stand before God, He's not going to see a pile or a list of all the things we did that were good. Hopefully He sees His Son. And that's the only thing He sees, because that's what's going to get us into His presence. Just think about that. I mean, we do good things because we love to do good things. We love God, not so that when we get to heaven, He says, look at all this check mark you have on your, look at all these gold stars you have on your sheet. That's not how it's going to be. Hopefully He sees Christ. In James and Matthew, it tells us that God opposes the proud and exalts and gives grace to the humble. Pride is our natural enemy for walking in humbleness with God. And so, guard your hearts. Spend time with God. Let God pour into you and you pour into others. Guard your hearts. Above all else, guard your hearts. Jesus came and gave plenty of examples of humbleness throughout His entire life, even dying on the cross. He humbled, the King of the universe, humbled Himself to dying on the cross for our sins. That just blows my mind. And His very last lesson with His disciples, He could have taught them anything. He could have said, this is what you need to know, this is what you need to know. His last lesson for His disciples was servanthood and humbleness. He took off His own clothes and got down on His knees and washed His disciples' dirty feet. Peter, who was going to deny Him, pretty much right after that, Jesus knew that was going to happen, and He washed his feet anyways. Judas, who was just pretty much right after that going to go out the door and go turn Him in, Jesus got down on His knees and washed. And it wasn't just like, I pour water. They had caked mud, animal stuff on their feet. And Jesus got down on His hands and knees and did this in humbleness. And so that was the last lesson. That's how important it was for Jesus to give that example to us. And so, we come back to this question on the next slide. What do you really want from God? I think that's a powerful question. Do you even want God to begin with? And if so, if you really want God, then you have to want what He wants. And that is to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with Him. And so I have a challenge for you guys. And what on the next slide you see the act justly, love mercy, walk humbly with your God. Out of those three, is there one that maybe you need to focus on a little bit more? And I challenge you this week to find ways to work on that. Is pride an issue for you? Is anger or revenge an issue for you? Is maybe there's a little dishonesty or integrity in your job or whatever? Is that something you need to work on? I challenge you this week to pick one of those three and to find ways to pray about it, to maybe find an accountability partner and work on one of those things. The band is going to come back up, and we're going to, I'm part of the band. That's funny. Funny to me. We're going to play a closing song, and if you would like any prayer, please don't leave without getting prayer. Find an elder, find me, we'll pray with you. If you're, like Craig said, if you want to know more about Jesus, what communion is, or about baptism, please find one of us.